Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Build It with Tim. On today's episode, we are building a rental marketplace with Tadabase. For this app, we are starting from scratch. Okay, so we are just going to start with a brand new app and we are going to give it a name, Rental Marketplace, and let Tadabase create the beginning of our application. So all we need to do to really get started here is we're just going to delete some of the sample stuff that comes along with the app itself, like the sample table and the sample page. We don't need either of those things. Like I said, we are starting from scratch. We are going to use the users table. The only thing we're going to add here that I want to keep track of for a user is a phone number. There it is, phone number. Okay, so I guess before I get too crazy into building this, we need to talk about how the kind of hierarchy of what we're looking at and what we're building. So we have users. These are the end users who are on the application and they are booking for rental properties. Okay, now we will then have an actual table to hold all the rental properties. And then we're going to have a join table that's going to be for bookings. And those bookings are going to connect to an end user and they're going to connect to a property, right? Because each user can select a property and create a booking. So we need to separate those three things into individual tables. And then the last table that we're going to use here is a reviews table. So the ability to leave reviews for your rental, whatever property you ended up renting, you can go in and review it. So it's only 4 tables. That's the basis of what we're doing. And really minimal connections here. So let's go back from the top. We already have the users. That's fine. Let's do rental properties. Let's create the bookings table. And of course, after we actually property reviews, after we create these tables, we're going to go back through and do all the fields. So for rental properties, what we need to track here is the rental property name, which we have. That's fine. So what is the name of the actual property? We also need a description of the property. So we'll do this in a rich text field in case you want to, make anything bold or have anything fancy. We need photos for the property itself. Okay, so we're going to choose the attachments field in this case because we can upload multiple images for the rental property. We're going to need a price per night. Price per price night. Price per night. And for this, it'll be, you could do decimal places if you want to. It's up to you on how you'd want to structure this. And that's it for now. We're going to come back to this once we do some connections, but now we can move on to the booking table. Now, rather than a booking name being like a text field that we can use here, I want to identify the bookings by ID. So I'm going to choose an auto increment and call this booking ID. And then I can delete the booking name field here because I'm not going to need a name for each booking. What I am going to need, though, is the connections. So we're going to do a connection to the user. So who booked it? Booked by, let's do that. And then we need to know what they booked. So they're booking a rental property. So we'll call this rental property booked. Now for the date of stay and how we're kind of going to figure out how long somebody is actually renting the property for, we're going to do something a little different than maybe what you would normally expect. We're actually going to do, we're going to do 2 date fields and a number field, but we're only going to present the 1 date field and 1 number field to the actual end user. And it's going to look like this. So we're going to do date of stay. So this is check-in date. I guess we could change that to check-in. I don't know if that's hyphenated. Check-in date? Sure, check-in date. And we'll do a check-out date as well. We kind of sandwiched in between these. We're going to do days booked. We're going to have a number field, and we're going to let the user just enter a number. So what day are they getting there? How many days are they going to be there? And then we'll calculate the end date. And to do that, we're going to install a pipe, specifically the Tadabase date utilities pipe. So once we find this pipe and we go to set it up, we only need to enter our time zone. And this is formatted in this particular way. Now I'm Eastern Standard Time, so I do America/New York. Now the format and the date time we're going to leave blank. We can use default values and record values for that. And the actual API call that we're going to be using is add days. Okay, so we're going to go back to our data builder to the bookings table and set up a table rule. So anytime a record is created or edited, we're going to fire that date utilities pipe. We're going to choose add days. The two parameters that we're going to pass are the record value of the check-in date and how many days we're going to add, and that's going to come from days booked. And then we're going to set the checkout date to the calculated value, which is the pipe response. Okay, so what that looks like right now, check-in date, I can just do today. We'll do like 4 days. And you can see it calculates that date. And because we did it on record edit as well, if I were to change my length of stay, then it's going to recalculate. Now, the other date thing that we're going to do, because I had this vision of having a calendar on the app, and I wanted to show when the property is not available. So to do that, the best way to do that on a calendar is with a date range. So we're going to add a date range field, but the only reason we're using it is specifically for the calendar. It's just going to be like display purposes only, essentially. So to populate that field, I'm going to go back to my table rule and set the start date to a record value of the check-in date, and the end date is going to come from that pipe response as well. Okay, so two record values are getting set from the pipe response. And now if I go back and I edit this, trigger the pipe, you're going to see I have a date range filled in now. Okay, so we don't need our test record. Let's get rid of that. All right, now for the price of the booking, right? Because when somebody books for a rental property, we're going to need them to pay. So we have price per night stored on the rental property record itself. And to get that value over to the bookings table, we can utilize that connection that we have from the booking to the property as a pathway to retrieve information. So we're going to go into our fields and add a number formula. Now, the number formula has the unique advantage of being able to actually look into connected tables and extract numerical values. So in this case, we can pull out the price per night of the selected property and then multiply it by a field within the bookings table, which is going to be the days booked. We can then format this to our liking and save. Let me actually rename this total cost. Okay. And that's what we need to do in order to bring the price per night from the rental property. And then we're going to multiply it by the days booked and get our total so that we can actually charge the end user. Okay, the other thing that I want to do, because we are charging, actually submitting payments through the application, is I want to know whether or not the booking record has been paid or not. So we're going to do booking status. And for this, we can just say incomplete or completed. All this is really telling us is whether or not somebody paid for it to kind of finalize the booking. Moving on to the property reviews table. This is going to be a pretty simple table where we can just call this, we'll just rename that default field, text field, from property review name to review title. And we'll also add a long text field to hold a longer review. We're going to need a rating field, and we can change the default color of the icon that we choose for this. And we need to know who left the review. Whoops, who left the review. So this will be reviewer. We need to know what they reviewed. And in this case, and you'll see why later on, we also want to know what booking this person is reviewing, right? So it's just an extra piece of information that we can use when we are building out our pages, so that we know what this review is essentially connected to everything: the booking, the rental property, and the user, so that we can kind of we can add a review from any location, whether we're looking at a rental property, a detail page, a booking detail page, it doesn't matter. So we can do booking connection there, and we're good to go on that. And that's it for this. So this is everything that we need for data, I guess, with the exception of maybe let's add a user role, because in this app, we're going to build two different layouts, one for regular end users and one for administrators. Okay, so let's start with the administrators. To do that, we will add a new layout, and we'll just call this admin layout, so that they can have their own set of pages and menus to configure all of the properties and the bookings and manage them all inside of the app itself. So we'll start with, let's just do something like property management. We're going to add it to the admin layout and to the admin menu. And this will be a list of all of the actual rental properties. So from the administrative perspective, they'll have the ability to add rental properties and view details about those rental properties. As an admin, I'd also want to see bookings, all of the bookings. So we can set that page up as well to view all bookings, and we can enable the same options here: details and a form to add a new booking. So if for some reason you wanted to add a booking for or on behalf of an end user, then you could do that. Now, we have our property management page, and then we have our two kind of child pages that are attached to that. Now, on the property detail page, I can then display all of the bookings for this particular property. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to then traverse or navigate to the booking details page. So when I kind of thinking of like a workflow perspective, if I'm looking at my rentals, I'm looking at the bookings for those rentals. If I want to go view more information about any given booking, I can go from the property detail page to the booking detail page through a connected page link or a value link when you have a connection within the actual component. But for this one, we're going to use the connected page. So you can see I deleted the booking ID because I'm going to disguise that as a link, or rather a button. So from here in the connected pages, page links, I'm going to go booking details, save that. And now I can modify this to change what field value is being displayed here. So I can actually display any record value from the booking record as the link value. So we're going to change that, and I'll hide the title and change this to a button, and we're good to go there. Now I can kind of do something similar here from the booking detail page. Now I could add a table here for all of the reviews connected to this booking. And I could also put in some user details if I want to as well. So we'll add a column here. And for this, I can then add a detail component and do the users that are connected to this booking through the booked by field: name, email, and phone. All right, now, sorry, I got slightly sidetracked there, but from here I want to then be able to go back to the property detail page. So for this, I'm going to go into the connection field that's used to connect the booking to the property, and I can assign a value link. So this is just like what we did with the connected page link, except we're doing it right on the connection field itself. So here I can go to rental property details, and that will take me back to where I came from. So let's look at this kind of all together. Of course, maybe I should finish out what we're doing in regards to the actual login and role flow here. So let's add a new record, and this will be an admin record, admin user. Oops, admin, password. Okay, good. And then we're going to go to our login component, and we will set up some redirect rules so that we can get ourselves to where we need to be. Admin will redirect to property management. I think at this point we're ready to actually log in and see what this looks like, and start adding some properties. So here we can do admin@test.com. And here we are looking at our pages that we just built. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add some properties. All right, so this will be a rustic cabin that we have available to rent. We have a description for that, and let's do a price of $149 a night. Sounds good to me. And then we'll upload a bunch of photos for this particular rental. And now we have our rental properties page. So if I go to the details here, now I don't actually have a booking, but let's just add one just to make sure everything's working okay. Booked by the default user. Check-in date, let's do Friday. And they're there for 3 days. And there we go. Okay, so if I go back to my properties now and look at this, we have this particular booking record, and here's the booking ID. I can click that button and it will take me to the booking details where I can see the information about the user, about the booking, and any reviews that they left for that particular booking. All right, and that's about it for the admin side for now, okay? We're gonna move on to the end user side of things now because that's much more fun. One thing I did notice that I wanted to change here is when a new booking is added, sorry, jumping around quite a bit. When a new booking is added, I want the booking status to be set as incomplete by default. So I'm going to go back and just set that up here as an additional table rule. Not part of this one because that one runs on edit as well. We only want to do this when it's on create. So booking status to a custom value of incomplete. All right, and that will ensure that every single booking record begins with this status, allowing us to change it from that. All right, so the end user layout or default user layout. We can start to add some pages for this, and it's going to be a pretty simple page structure where we have a list of all the available rentals, and then we have a page for the actual bookings. Now, each one is going to have a details page. The rental detail page will allow us to actually create a booking record and see the description of the rental and any reviews for that rental. And then once we create the booking record, we'll then direct the user to go pay for that booking. So let's start with the user layout. We have rentals. There's probably a more clever name than that, but I don't know right now. So we'll just do a list of rental properties, and that'll get us started for that. And then we'll do my bookings, and same thing, we'll do a list of bookings connected to the logged in user, and that will get us started for that. Now let's go through the actual rental page first. I want to see what this looks like and how we can make it really, really cool. So we'll preview this page. Right, so that's not really what we want. We want it to look much better than that. So let's just start like this. We will just remove everything and let's give it a fancy name. Find your dream getaway. And we'll do a rental property name, price per night, and one more thing that I'm going to add in a second. Before we do that, we'll change this to 3 columns so we can show 3 rentals per row. And we're going to change this to the bordered box version of the layout so that we can use the photos as a cover field. And just by changing that, you'll see that this now looks much nicer. Okay, so that's what we're starting with. Now, what I realized I wanted to add here is we have the ability to leave a review, but from the rental property perspective, we want to know what the average review is. So for that, we can use a roll up, and we'll call this average rating. And we will grab our data from the reviews table. And for our function, we're going to choose average, and we're going to do an average of all of the ratings that are connected to this particular property. Now, what's cool is that the roll-up field will actually output the star rating. So you'll see that once we do some reviews. Now, back to this so that we can make it look even better. Let's split this into 2 columns. So we'll have the rental property name here, price per night over here, and average rating over here as well. Now the rental property name, I don't really want to show the field title here, so I'm going to hide that. And then I can just use a quick CSS class of heading 2 or H2 to make that to make this text larger, stand out a little bit more on the page. So I'm going to change it like that, and then I'm going to add a detail page here. I'm going to add it above the rental property name. Book now, we will say, for our button. And see, we'll make this block fill, so that'll be full width. And we will do a large button, and we'll make it a brighter color, like info or warning. I guess we could do either one. Let's do info and see how that looks. Okay, that's not bad so far. I think that'll work because once the average rating is there, it'll kind of fill it out a little bit more. But I think that's totally fine for now. So this will take us to the rental detail page where we can view all of the photos. Obviously the name of the property, the average rating, the price per night, and the description. From here, what we want to do is we want to display that calendar that I mentioned briefly and give the ability to create a booking record and show reviews. That's what we want to do. So let's go do that. On the rental property detail page, we're going to split this into 2 columns. On the left, we'll have a calendar that'll show bookings connected to this rental property booked. Current availability will be the name of this calendar. Now the date field, we're going to use that date range. Again, that was the sole purpose for creating this field, was to use the date range so that you can see the booking actually span across multiple days. The label field, I have an idea for the label field actually, and I want to, I'll set that up in a moment. The booking ID, we don't need drag and drop. We don't need a detail page. We don't need a form. This is only for display purposes. And to kind of re-emphasize that these things are unavailable, we'll change this to like a light red for the event color. And to ensure that we are displaying the correct records, we will only show things where the booking status, we will only show booking records where the booking status is completed. I think that's it. All right, so for the actual event label, before we can actually see anything on our calendar, we need to change this to completed. So we'll just manually change that so that we can refresh this page and see that particular record. So here you can see it's all kind of laid out in front of us where clearly it's well, the intention here is to show that it's booked on that particular day. Now the event label that we chose was booking ID, but that doesn't mean anything to a user ID 2. What I would prefer it to say is unavailable. If we go back to our booking record, we don't have any fields really that we can use where it says unavailable. We have our booking status field, but we don't want it to say completed. I'd like it to say unavailable. So to do that, I'm going to use an equation field, and I'm going to do an if statement for this and say if the booking status is equal to completed, then output unavailable, otherwise available. Okay, and then we just need to wrap this in an if statement using if and open and close parentheses. Validate that, and we'll say booking status equation. And if we go back to our records now, you'll see that it says unavailable. If I change it to something else, available. Okay. So completed. Back to our calendar. And now it says, nope, it doesn't say anything because we haven't changed it yet. Label field, booking status equation. Now we can refresh and it says unavailable. All right. So again, the idea here is to just communicate to the end user that these dates are not available. All right. So now we can add a form to add a new booking connected to this rental property. And again, we'll say book now. Check-in date. Let's change this title to how many days will you be staying? We'll ask a question and get their response. Require those. And that's it, I think. Yeah, that's it for the form inputs. We need to do a couple things here with rules to make sure that everything is getting set properly, all the connections and stuff, because we have 2 connections on the booking record. So this is setting a connection to the rental property. We also want to set a connection to the logged in user, right? Who booked it? And we can set that to logged in user. Everything else here is okay, so we don't need anything else. We only need that one rule. And submit rule, I don't think I created the page yet, but we're going to have a My Booking detail page, and that's where we're going to direct the user to. So let's go ahead and create that particular detail page now. So we're over on the My Bookings page. Configuring the list component, we can do the booking ID, the property, date range, maybe. No, let's do check-in date and check-out date, total cost, and that's fine, I think. And a record detail page. View details. I like to make things a button, so we'll make it a button, and I would hide the column title. All right, so now we have the booking detail or My Booking detail page all set, which means when I create a new booking record, I can then redirect to that detail page. So here it is available now, My Bookings, booking details. And of course, we'll go test this out. Check-in date. 24th because it's not available this weekend. And we'll be staying, how about for 5 days? Okay, now this is going to take us over to My Bookings, booking details. And that's exactly where we want to be, because from here, we are going to then display a form for the user to pay for their booking, as well as show any property reviews. So booking details, I'm going to change this to make the column a little bit smaller. And then I'll add a column right next door and add a form in there to edit the page booking. So the way this is going to work is we're going to display the Stripe payment module, I guess, here in the edit booking form, because that's where the total value that we need to charge, that's where it lives. It lives on the booking record. So let's put these 4 fields here. I'm going to disable these. Once the booking record has been created, I don't want anybody to edit it because that would refresh the equation. And this is not the best place to do that. So if we need to allow editing of the booking record, then the place to do that would be probably the detail page here, where we could say edit and place an edit link there. Of course, it's not a huge focus of mine at the moment. We're mainly focused on the actual checkout process right now. So Stripe payments. I have a whole video about Stripe payments. I suggest we go check it out. But here's how we're going to do this. We're going to go to settings, Stripe payments, turn this on, enter in our API details. In this case, I'm only going to use my test credentials because this is not going to be a production app. And that's all I need to do to set this up. And once I have all of that configured, I'm going to have a new option in this form to edit the booking record where I can now see Stripe payments. This will add a credit card input to the form, and I can now configure what data I need to pass. So the amount which is required is coming from a record value of the total cost, and currency is USD. That's totally fine. I can update and save it. Before I leave here, I'm going to utilize a technique from previous videos with display rules and CSS, where I'm going to put the credit card input into its own row, and I'm going to give that row a custom CSS class, and we'll call this Stripe row. And I copied it because I'm going to go to display rules and say if booking status is completed, then hide the CSS selector of .stripe row, otherwise show. Additionally, I'm going to lock down the submit button with the same logic. So if booking status is completed, then disable the actual button and change the text to say you've already paid. You've already paid for this. Okay. Good. Because this is, we have to remember that this is the detail page of all of my bookings. So historically, if I go back into this app and I look at an older booking and then I go to booking details, I don't want to pay for it again. I don't even want to see that particular option. And I think this one is still left as completed. No? Okay, let's do that then so you can see what this looks like. The other thing we need to do from within this form is we need to modify that booking status value once the form has been submitted. And the form in this case will only be submitted if the payment is accepted. That's kind of just the nature of the Stripe payment module there. So we'll do set record values, booking status to a custom value of completed. That means that, as I said, when you submit this form, then it will update that value. So let's do that now. You can see it's currently marked as incomplete. We will enter in our test card values. Pay now. Completed. Okay, so this is fine for now. When I come back to this page, again, like I said, historically, if I go back and I look at previous bookings of mine, the Stripe input is hidden and it says you've already paid for this, and I can't click the button to change this particular or to submit that particular form. All right, the last thing we want to add on this page is a form to leave a review. So the reason why we added an additional, let's look at it while I'm talking about it. The reason why we added an additional connection here to the booking, it seems kind of counterintuitive until we get to that particular page setup. So we're looking at bookings and booking details, so the booking record itself. In order to leave a review specific to that booking, we need that connection there. So that's why we did it that way. Back on the booking detail page, we will add that form now to add a new property review connected to this booking. Now, the only tricky thing about this is that we need to update a couple things using record rules. So we'll say leave a review as the title, review title, review, and the rating. The only connected value or connection that this form is going to set is the booking connection. The reviewer connection, which is the connection to the user, we can get from a logged in user value. The property connection, which we also have to set, can come from a connected value of the booking that gets set. So we can look into the connected booking, pull out the property that it was booked for, and set that value. And that will allow us to complete all of the connections that we have for this particular review. So as a sample review, if we put in something like this, 5-star review, raving review here, we'll save that. And we go back to the rentals now. You can see that roll up field gets our average rating, outputs the actual stars, which is pretty cool. So that's how we'll handle that. And a couple other things just to kind of round this out a little bit is the whole idea is that, that with connections to users and rules, record rules, table rules, whatever, that are using logged in user values, we need to ensure that somebody's actually logged in. So they can't book for something unless they're actually logged in. In order to do that, what we're going to do is going to go back to our rental property detail page, okay, where we allow somebody to actually submit a booking record. We're going to hide this row, and we're going to do that through row visibility and say any logged in user. And then we're going to have another row above it that's going to be visible to non-logged in users. Now the row that's above it is essentially just going to be instructions to say you must log in or create an account to book this rental. And we can just kind of stylize that a little bit. And then we are going to link to the login page and the sign up page. Create an account goes to the sign up page. Once we have that in place, then if we are not logged in, right, we want to be able to let anonymous or public users actually look at our rentals, but to book it, we want them to log in or create an account. Okay, once that person actually logs in, which let me make sure we have a redirect rule enabled for regular users, rentals. So once a normal end user actually logs in, now when they view that detail page, they'll see this row with the calendar and the form, all right, allowing them to select a date, how many days they'll be staying, and save. All right, speaking of kind of roles and security, the last thing we want to do here is on the admin layout, we are going to go to the security settings and we are going to batch change every single page within here by modifying the security setting on the actual layout level. All right, so admins can view anything within this layout and save. Now the whole admin layout is now been restricted. Okay, and one final thing I think is I'm going to change the theme. I think it would look cooler if we did something like this. And here we are now with our finished rental marketplace. So once I have more rentals that I can offer here, I can go ahead through my administrative side of the app and add those. And here is our ability for a user, an end user, to book and pay for any given rental. So that's it for today's episode of Build It with Tim. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.